Listen carefully to this story, my dear friends. It happened in a small village not too long ago. A story that will make you think twice before picking up anything shiny on the ground. If you're watching this video, please like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching my folktale story from. I want to know how far it has traveled. The final bell rang loud and clear at St. Peter's Primary School, echoing across the dusty compound. Children poured out of their classrooms like water bursting from a dam, their voices filling the air with excited chatter and joyful laughter. School bags bounced on their backs as they ran toward the big iron gate that led to freedom. The sun was still bright and warm in the afternoon sky, casting long shadows on the red earth beneath their feet. Dust clouds followed their running feet as they kicked up the dry soil with every step they took. Tund walked slowly beside his very best friend Femi, both boys wearing their neat blue and white school uniforms that their mothers had washed and ironed with care. They talked and laughed about many wonderful things that filled their young minds. Tund's eyes sparkled as he dreamed of buying crispy meat pies with golden edges from Mama Sidi's food stall. Femi's mouth watered as he thought about the colorful sweet candies that would make his tongue tingle with happiness. Their loving mothers had given them small silver coins that morning for buying snacks after school. The boys kicked small stones playfully as they walked along the familiar dusty path, feeling happy and grateful that another long school day was finally done and finished. As the two friends walked slowly along the dusty road that ran beside the large green cassava field, something very unusual caught their curious young eyes. A bright green 1,000 naira note was lying carelessly on the ground, right there in the middle of their walking path. The money moved slightly in the gentle afternoon breeze, almost like it was waving at them and calling their names softly. Tund's dark eyes grew wide with pure excitement and wonder. His young heart started beating very fast like a drum inside his chest. "Look there, Femi. Look at that beautiful money," he whispered in amazement, pointing with his small shaking finger toward the tempting green note that seemed to glow in the sunlight. But Femi quickly stepped backward, his face clearly showing deep worry and great concern. He remembered very well what his wise parents had told him many times at home during their evening talks. "Don't you dare touch it, Tund," Femi said with a firm and serious voice. "My dear Mama and Papa always tell me never to pick up anything from the ground, especially money. They say it can be very dangerous and bring terrible trouble to whoever touches it." Tund laughed loudly and shook his head from side to side. "It's just ordinary money, my friend Femi. What could possibly be so dangerous about simple money? We could buy so many wonderful things with it." Femi quickly grabbed Tund's arm with both hands and pulled him back strongly from the tempting green note. "Please, leave that money alone right now. Let's just go straight home to our families," he begged with tears starting to form in his worried eyes. "My parents have told me many scary stories about things exactly like this. They said very bad things happen to people who pick up things from the road, especially money that doesn't belong to them." But Tund pulled his arm free from his friend's tight grip with great force. He looked at the bright money again, and his desire for it grew much stronger than before. "You're being far too scared for no good reason, Femi," he said with growing confidence and determination. "It's just a simple 1,000 naira note, nothing more and nothing less than that. What's the very worst thing that could possibly happen to me?" Femi tried one more time to save his friend from danger. "Tund, please listen carefully to what I'm saying. Let's go buy our snacks with our own money that our mothers gave us." But Tund was not listening to his friend's words anymore. His young mind was already thinking about all the wonderful and delicious things he could buy with that much money. He took one careful step forward, then another step closer to the money. The exact moment that Tund's small fingers made contact with the mysterious green money, everything in the world changed completely. His entire body became stiff and hard like a thick wooden plank. His smooth brown skin quickly turned gray and rough like cement that builders use. In just a few short seconds that felt like forever, where young Tund had been standing and breathing, there was now only a heavy gray stone that was perfectly shaped like a small boy. Femi screamed so loudly that all the birds in the nearby trees flew away in great fear. He stumbled backward quickly, his young legs shaking terribly with shock and horror. The bright green 1,000 naira note had completely disappeared into thin air, leaving no trace or sign that it had ever existed in the first place. Only the cold, gray stone remained exactly where his dear friend used to stand just moments before. Femi's heavy school bag fell from his trembling shoulders and hit the dusty ground with a loud thud. He rubbed his eyes hard with his small fists, desperately hoping that he was having a terrible nightmare and would wake up soon. But when he looked again with his wide, frightened eyes, the gray stone was still there, silent and motionless. Tund. Tund. Please answer me, he cried desperately, but the stone remained completely quiet and gave no response at all. More school children who were walking nearby heard Femi's terrified screams echoing through the air and came running quickly to see what terrible thing had happened. When they arrived and saw the strange gray stone that was perfectly shaped exactly like a young boy, they all gasped loudly and held each other very tightly with fear and amazement. Some of the braver children moved closer step by step to get a better look at this impossible sight. Then something completely amazing and very frightening happened right before their shocked eyes. The cold gray stone began to make soft, muffled sounds, like someone who was trapped deep inside was desperately trying to speak and be heard. "Help me, please. Somebody help me," came a weak, sad voice from somewhere deep inside the hard stone. All the children screamed loudly and jumped backward in complete terror. Some of them ran away as fast as their young legs could possibly carry them, their school bags bouncing wildly on their backs. Others stayed where they were, too shocked and amazed to move even one step. "That voice sounds exactly like our friend Tund," whispered one small girl with wide, frightened eyes. "But how is it possible for a stone to talk like a person?" asked another confused boy, his voice shaking with fear. The mysterious voice came again, much clearer this time. "Please help me get out of here. I can't move my body at all." When Mama Ronk, Tund's mother, heard the terrible news from a breathless child who ran to her market stall, she immediately dropped all the fresh yams she was carefully arranging for her customers. The yams rolled everywhere across the dusty ground, but she didn't care about them at all. She lifted up her colorful wrapper and ran faster than she had ever run in her entire life, her heart pounding with fear and worry for her precious son. Other concerned market women quickly followed behind her, their faces showing deep worry and great concern for their neighbor's trouble. When Mama Ronk finally reached the spot where the crowd had gathered and saw the mysterious gray stone with her own eyes, she knew immediately in her mother's heart that this was definitely her beloved son Tund. A mother always knows her own child, even when that child has been changed beyond all recognition by dark forces. "My dear Tund. My most precious boy in the whole world," she wailed loudly, throwing her entire body down on the hard ground beside the cold stone. She wrapped her arms around it tightly, not caring at all that it was cold and very rough against her soft skin. Hot tears poured from her eyes like heavy rain during the rainy season. The growing crowd of people around them whispered quietly among themselves, trying to understand this terrible mystery. Baba Ade, Tund's father, was busy in his carpentry workshop carefully making a beautiful wooden chair for an important customer when his worried neighbor burst through the door with the most terrible news he had ever heard. Baba Ade immediately dropped his heavy hammer with a loud crash that echoed through the small workshop and ran out without even taking time to close his shop properly behind him. His strong, muscular legs carried him quickly through the dusty village streets, past familiar houses and market stalls. When he finally arrived at the scene and saw with his own eyes what had happened to his beloved son, his knees became weak like water and he almost fell to the ground. The heavy hammer was still gripped tightly in his rough, work-hardened hand, shaking badly as his whole body trembled with shock, anger, and deep sadness. "Who has done this terrible thing to my innocent boy?" he shouted angrily at the bright blue sky above. "What kind of evil magic is this that turns children into stone?" He knelt down carefully beside his weeping wife and placed his large, rough hands gently on the cold surface of the stone. It felt completely lifeless and dead, but he could clearly hear his son's weak voice trapped somewhere deep inside. "Don't worry at all, my son Tund," he promised in a strong, determined voice that carried across the crowd. "Your papa will never rest until you are completely free from this curse." The desperate family carefully lifted the stone together and slowly carried it to their local church, where Pastor Williams had served the community faithfully for many long years. The kind pastor was a wise man who had successfully helped many troubled people in their small community solve their most difficult problems through prayer and faith. Pastor Williams looked at the mysterious gray stone with very serious eyes and immediately began to pray with great passion and power. "In the mighty name of Jesus Christ, release this innocent boy right now," he shouted loudly, raising both his hands high toward the ceiling of the church. He sprinkled blessed holy water generously on the stone and commanded all the evil spiritual forces to leave this child alone forever. The entire church congregation quickly joined him in prayer, singing powerful hymns and praying loudly without stopping for even one moment. They continued praying together for more than 2 complete hours without taking any break at all. Sweat poured heavily from the pastor's worried face as he called desperately on heaven for divine help and intervention. But when all the prayers and singing finally ended, the gray stone remained exactly the same as before. It was still completely gray, still terribly cold to touch, and still very heavy to lift. Tun's weak voice came softly from deep inside, "I'm still here, Papa. I'm still trapped in this dark place." Pastor Williams shook his gray head very sadly and admitted defeat. The next day, the worried family decided to take the stone to visit Baba Yemi, who was the most respected traditional Ifa priest in their entire town and the surrounding villages. His sacred shrine was beautifully decorated with many carved wooden figures of ancient spirits and colorful glass beads that caught the sunlight. The wise old priest shook his special brass divination chain and threw it carefully on his woven mat, studying very closely the complex patterns it made when it landed. His wise old eyes, which had seen many mysterious things during his long life, could see spiritual things that ordinary people could never see or understand. This young boy was trapped by very ancient and powerful spirits, he declared solemnly after many long minutes of complete silence and deep thought. The money he foolishly touched was definitely not ordinary money at all. It was carefully prepared spiritual bait set by dark forces that feed hungrily on human greed and selfishness. The priest lit several special candles that had been blessed with powerful herbs and began chanting mysterious words in the very old language that his grandfather had taught him. Thick, sweet-smelling smoke slowly filled the small shrine as he called loudly on all the ancestors for their help and protection. But even after many hours of performing complex rituals and ancient ceremonies, absolutely nothing changed about the stone. The tired priest looked very worried and concerned. "This spiritual trap is extremely strong and powerful," he admitted sadly to the heartbroken family. That long, terrible night, the grieving family brought the heavy gray stone back to their small home and placed it very gently on Tun's own small bed, where he had slept peacefully for so many years. His 2 loving sisters, Kehind and Yatund, sat carefully beside the cold stone and cried bitterly until their young eyes were completely swollen and red from all their tears. They touched the rough stone very softly and gently, desperately hoping that their dear brother could somehow feel their deep love for him even through the hard surface. Mama Ronk went to her kitchen and cooked Tun's most favorite meal of jollof rice and pepper stew, then placed the steaming hot food right beside the stone as if her son could actually eat it and enjoy its delicious taste. Baba Ade sat heavily in his favorite wooden chair that he had made with his own skilled hands, staring sadly into the complete darkness outside their window. He held his heavy carpenter's hammer tightly in his strong grip, wishing desperately that he could use it to break whatever terrible curse had trapped his beloved son inside the stone. But his wise mind knew that hitting the stone with his hammer might seriously hurt or even kill Tund, who was trapped inside. Sleep did not come to anyone in the sad house that night. Every few minutes, they would hear Tund's weak, tired voice calling out, "Mama, I'm so cold in here. Papa, I'm very scared and lonely." Deep in the very middle of the dark night, when the entire village was quiet and peaceful and everyone else was sleeping, the mysterious gray stone began to whisper again in Tund's familiar voice. "Mama, I'm so terribly cold in here. I'm very hungry too, and my stomach hurts badly. Please help me get out of this dark prison." Tund's soft voice came clearly through the stone, sounding sad and desperate. Kehind and Yatund immediately screamed in fear and surprise, then ran quickly to their parents' bedroom with their hearts beating very fast. "Mama! Papa! Wake up right now. Tund is talking to us again," they cried loudly, shaking their sleeping parents awake with their small hands. The entire worried family rushed together to Tun's small bedroom and gathered closely around the cold stone like they were protecting something very precious. Mama Rank carefully picked up the heavy stone and held it tightly against her chest, just like she used to hold baby Tund when he was very small and needed comfort. "My dear son, I can hear your voice clearly. We are trying absolutely everything possible to help you escape. Please don't give up hope," she whispered softly to the stone, her voice full of love and determination. Her warm tears fell steadily on the gray surface, but it remained cold and hard as before. "I make this promise to you, my most precious child, we will never stop searching until you are completely free." By the time the bright morning sun rose high in the sky, news of what had happened to young Tund had spread quickly to every single corner of their village and beyond, moving like wildfire through the community. People gathered together in small groups at the busy market, in front of their houses, and under the big old oak tree that had stood in the village center for many years. Everyone was talking about the same amazing and frightening thing, the schoolboy who had mysteriously turned into a talking stone. Some people whispered that he was being punished by the spirits for being too greedy and selfish. Others said quietly that his family must have done something terrible to anger the powerful ancestors. A few wise older people said it was an important lesson for everyone about the serious dangers of picking up things from the ground. Parents everywhere called their children close to them and warned them very sternly, "Do you see what happened to poor Tund? This is exactly why you must never, ever pick up money or anything else you find lying on the road." Children listened carefully with wide, frightened eyes and promised faithfully to obey their parents' important warnings. The incredible story spread quickly to neighboring villages too. Soon, curious people were traveling from very far away just to see the famous talking stone with their own eyes. Everyone who heard the story had something different to say about it, but sadly nobody had any solution to help poor Tund get free. Desperate for any kind of help they could find, the heartbroken family made the difficult decision to take Tund's stone to the famous mountain prayer camp, where many people said that amazing miracles happened every single day. It was a very long and tiring journey, and carrying the extremely heavy stone was not easy work at all for the family. But their deep love for Tund gave them the strength they needed to continue. At the prayer camp, hundreds of people dressed in pure white robes prayed continuously day and night without ever stopping. They fasted completely, refusing to eat any food for days, and sang very powerful songs that echoed loudly through the tall mountains and deep valleys. The dedicated prayer warriors laid their hands directly on the cold stone and commanded it with great authority to release the innocent boy who was trapped inside. They prayed with such incredible passion and energy that rivers of sweat poured from their faces like waterfalls during the rainy season. For one exciting moment, it seemed like something miraculous might actually happen before their eyes. A strange, powerful wind began to blow suddenly, even though the air had been completely still and calm just moments before. All the lit candles throughout the entire prayer ground went out at exactly the same time, as if they had been blown out by some invisible breath from heaven. Everyone held their breath hopefully, thinking this might be a wonderful sign of breakthrough. But when they relit all the candles, the stone was still there, completely unchanged and totally silent. When the disappointed family returned to their home village, Kehind, the older sister, decided she would try something completely different to help her trapped brother. Very early in the morning, while fresh dew was still sparkling on the green grass like tiny diamonds, she knelt down carefully beside her brother's cold stone. She poured clean, fresh water from her grandmother's old clay calabash slowly over the stone, exactly the way their wise grandmother used to bless them when they were very small children. "Tund, it's me, your loving sister Kehind," she whispered softly and gently. "Do you remember how we used to play together every day after school? Do you remember how I always shared my sweet candies with you, even when I only had one left?" She prayed quietly in her own simple, honest words, not using the big, complicated religious language like the pastors and priests had used. She spoke from her heart like she was talking to her best friend. For one hopeful moment, the gray stone seemed to rumble very softly and gently, like distant thunder far away on the horizon. Kehind's young heart jumped high with excitement and new hope. "Tund, can you hear me speaking to you?" she asked with great excitement. But then everything became quiet again. The stone was as silent and hard as before. Kehind placed her forehead against the cold stone and wept bitterly. She had been so sure her love could reach her brother and bring him back. The disappointment was almost too much to bear. Later that same day, Yetund, the younger sister, tried her own approach. She remembered how much Tund loved it when she sang to him at bedtime. She sat beside the stone and began to sing his favorite lullaby, the one their mother used to sing when they were small. Her sweet voice filled the room with the familiar melody. Sleep, my baby, sleep so sweet, angels watch you while you sleep. As she sang, something wonderful happened. From deep inside the stone came the sound of soft laughter, the same giggly laugh that Tund always made when he was happy. Everyone in the room heard it clearly. For a precious moment, it was as if Tund was right there with them, laughing at his sister's song. But then, like a candle being blown out, the laughter stopped. The stone became cold and silent once more. Yetund's heart shattered into pieces. She had been so close to reaching her brother, but still not close enough to free him from his prison. For 6 long days, the family traveled from place to place, carrying the stone everywhere. They visited every prophet, herbalist, imam, and traditional healer they could find. Each person they met claimed to have special powers and promised to help. Some charged money, others asked for offerings of kola nuts and palm wine. They tried everything, burning incense, sprinkling oils, chanting special words, and performing ancient dances. But nothing worked. The stone remained stubbornly unchanged. Baba Aid's strong hands began to bleed from carrying the rough stone so much. His back ached terribly, but he refused to rest. I will carry my son until my last breath, he declared. Mama Ronk walked beside him, her feet swollen and sore from all the journeying. But like her husband, she would not give up. Their love for Tund gave them strength to continue searching, even when hope seemed to be slipping away like sand through their fingers. On the 7th morning, when the family had almost lost all hope, something unexpected happened. A tall man dressed in pure white robes walked into the village square. His presence seemed to bring peace to everyone around him. He had kind eyes and spoke in a gentle but confident voice. I am Prophet Elijah from the next town, he introduced himself to the curious crowd that gathered around him. Last night, I had a powerful vision. I saw a young boy trapped in stone, crying for help. The spirit told me to come here and help free him. The people looked at each other with wonder. How could this stranger know about Tund when they had never seen him before? Some people began to whisper excitedly. Maybe this was the answer to their prayers. Maybe this prophet could succeed where all others had failed. The family was called, and they hurried to the square with the stone, their hearts beating fast with new hope. But not everyone believed in the new prophet. Some villagers laughed and pointed at him mockingly. Who are you to think you can help when our own pastor failed? When the Ifa priest failed? When all the mountain prayer warriors failed, they asked with doubt in their voices. You're just one man. What makes you think you're so special? Prophet Elijah listened patiently to their questions and doubts. He did not get angry or try to defend himself. Instead, he smiled peacefully and spoke wisdom. My friends, this is exactly the problem. Everyone has been trying to fight this spiritual battle alone. But some battles can only be won when people come together in unity. He looked around at the mixed crowd of Christians, Muslims, and traditional believers. The boy's freedom requires all of us working together, not competing against each other. When we join our different faiths and prayers, we become stronger than any evil force. His words made sense, but many people still looked uncertain and suspicious. Despite some people's doubts, Prophet Elijah began to organize everyone. Come, all of you, he called out with authority. Christians, Muslims, traditional believers, young and old. We will form one big circle around this boy's stone. Slowly, people began to move. Pastor Williams came with his church members. Imam Suleiman brought his followers from the mosque. Baba Ifaimi arrived with his traditional worshippers. Even children and elderly people joined the growing circle. They all held hands, creating a chain of different people with different beliefs but one common goal. Now, Prophet Elijah instructed them, when I count to 3, we will all shout together with one voice, release him. Ready? 1, 2, 3. The sound that came from over 100 voices joined together was like thunder rolling across the sky. Birds flew away from trees, and the very ground seemed to shake. Even people who had been doubting began to feel something powerful happening in that moment. As their united voices rose to heaven, something incredible began to happen to the stone. A soft, golden light started to glow around it, like the first rays of sunrise. Everyone gasped and held their breath. The light grew brighter and brighter until it was almost too beautiful to look at. Then, a thin crack appeared right down the middle of the stone, running from top to bottom like a line drawn by God's finger. Mama Ronk began to sob uncontrollably, her whole body shaking with emotion. She gripped Baba Aid's hand so tightly that her knuckles turned white. "Something is happening," she cried through her tears. "My son is coming back to me." The crack grew wider, and more light poured out from inside. The crowd pressed closer, some people crying, others praying silently. Even the doubters were now watching with amazement. The impossible was happening right before their eyes. The stone that had trapped Tund for 7 long days was finally beginning to break apart. The stone continued to change and soften, becoming like wet clay in a potter's hands. Everyone watched in silent wonder as shapes began to emerge from the gray mass. First, they could see the outline of small fingers and toes. Then an arm appeared, then a leg. Finally, Tund's face became visible, pale and thin but definitely alive. "Mama," came his weak voice, so soft they could barely hear it. The stone completely melted away like ice in the sun, leaving Tund lying on the ground, free at last. But 7 days trapped inside the stone had left him very weak. His body was thin from not eating, and his skin was pale from not seeing sunlight. His clothes were the same ones he had worn to school that day, now dusty and torn. Mama Ronk threw herself on her son, gathering him into her arms like a precious treasure she had lost and found again. "My baby, my precious baby," she wept, covering his face with kisses. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause, praising God for the miracle they had witnessed. The entire village exploded with joy and celebration. People shouted, clapped their hands, and danced in the streets. Tund collapsed into his mother's loving arms, too weak to stand but smiling with happiness to be free. His father knelt beside them, his rough carpenter's hands gently touching his son's face to make sure he was real. Kehind and Yetund threw themselves on their brother, hugging him so tightly he could barely breathe, but he didn't mind at all. "I missed you so much," Yetund cried. "We prayed for you every day," Kehind added, tears streaming down her cheeks. Tund's voice was hoarse and weak, but his eyes sparkled with life. "I could hear all of you," he whispered. "When you sang to me, when you prayed for me, when you poured water on me. I felt your love even inside that dark, cold place." The family held each other tightly, not wanting to let go ever again. They had learned that love and unity were more powerful than any curse or evil magic. Prophet Elijah stood before the amazed crowd and explained what had really happened. His voice was clear and wise as he taught them an important lesson. "That money Tund picked up was not ordinary money," he said. "It was a spiritual trap set by dark forces to test people's hearts. When greed made him take what was not his, it gave the trap power over him." He pointed to where the money had been. "But greed gave it strength, and only pure love and unity could break it. When all of you came together, putting aside your different beliefs to help one child, your combined prayers became stronger than the curse." The crowd listened carefully to every word. This is why the boy could not be freed by one person alone, no matter how powerful they claimed to be. It required all of us working as one. Heads nodded in understanding throughout the gathering. Old rivalries between different religious groups began to fade as people realized they were all part of one human family with the same hopes and dreams. That evening, the whole community came together for a celebration like none they had ever seen before. Women cooked huge pots of jollof rice, fried plantains, and pepper soup. Men set up long tables under the moonlight and brought out traditional drums that had not been played in years. Children who had been too scared to go outside since Tund's incident now ran and played freely, their laughter filling the air. Tun sat beside his parents, still too weak to dance but smiling as he watched his friends and family celebrate his freedom. People from other villages who had heard about the miracle came to see for themselves. They brought gifts of food and drinks to join the celebration. Christians, Muslims, and traditional believers sat at the same tables, sharing food and stories. The divisions that had existed before seemed silly now. They had learned that working together made them all stronger. As the drums played late into the night, everyone knew this was a day they would remember forever. From that day forward, a new saying spread through not just their village, but to towns and cities far away: no child should pick money from the road, better to lose a coin than to lose your life. Parents everywhere told their children Tun's story as a warning and a lesson. Tun himself carried a small scar on his hand where he had first touched the cursed money, a reminder that would stay with him forever. But he was grateful to be alive and free. He became wiser and more careful about the choices he made. Whenever he saw other children tempted to pick up things from the ground, he would tell them his story and show them his scar. The legend of the crying stone became a folktale passed down from parents to children for generations. And in that village, people learned that their differences in faith and culture were not as important as their shared love for each other. Unity had set a boy free, and it had set a whole community free as well. The story you have just heard is a beautiful African tale I heard long ago. I'm telling you to wake your minds to the danger of greed and the power of unity. Tund learned that not everything that looks good is good for you. Sometimes the things we desire most can trap us in ways we never imagined. If you were Tund's friend Femi, what would you have done when you saw your best friend reaching for that money? Would you have run away, or would you have stayed to help him? I want to know your opinion because every story is like a candle that can light the path for someone else. Remember, when people come together with love and put aside their differences, they can overcome any problem. The lesson here is clear: greed can trap us, but love and unity can set us free. God bless you, and may wisdom guide your choices. Meanwhile, on the final screen, I am leaving you with one of the channel's most beloved folktales. I am sure you'll love it. Thank you for staying with me until this moment.